So talk to me about the onboarding process and communicating that individual's role. So like my question I wrote down here is just how do I communicate the job duties efficiently to this new hire?
So I would go, I mean, that job description should be your template and your tool, right? So job description should be like the experience that you want someone to have, whether it's education, years of working, if there's certain software packages you want them to learn, like most people know, like Microsoft Office or Google, Suite. So understanding those things. And then your essential duties and tasks are kind of like your day-to-day things. I know like Christy and Christy put together a really nice checklist of things. So having something like that lined out in the job description, and then you'll have other position requirements and skills. At least that's the way I write mine, Chris, and you've seen my format.
Yeah.
And so then I'll put a bunch of those soft skills in there, lives out our company values or our core values or whatever you want to call it, effective communication, good time management skills, whatever those things are. And then all the job descriptions I write, there's always the little box at the bottom that talks about employment at will. It's not meant to be all inclusive. I always have people sign and date the job description so they know there's some onus there and like accountability. And then there's also the physical demands of the job. And that's there. Again, if you have 15 or more employees, you're subject to the ADA, the American Disabilities Act. You have to do reasonable accommodations and discussions with people that are your W-2 team members. And then also if you have a workers' comp claim, somebody gets hurt on the job, it's good to, again, have those physical, duties of the job. So you can share that with the doctor and have, again, the interactive process to try to get them to come back to work. So when you're onboarding, I'm going back to your onboarding question, Chris, when you're onboarding somebody, it's really important that they understand their job description and their duties. But then also, again, if you have checklists or tasks or competency sheets based upon what you want them to learn, again, the first 30 days, 60 and 90 days, those are all laid out. I would share that with them like the first day on the job so they know what the path's going to look like. If you have an onboarding schedule, like you mentioned, like with CarMax, this is what your schedule is going to look like the next month. You're going to work these 2 weeks shadowing, and then you're going to be in the classroom. Here's what you're going to learn in the classroom. These are the topics we're going to cover. I always like what you said, and I think CarMax does a good job based upon what you just shared, but always being able to ask the new hire questions and having a resource for them to go to. Again, let's say you have 1,000 employees, where's the bathroom at? What time do I take my break? That's not always communicated very well in a large company. So even when it's a small company, let's say you hire your first employee, I live in Cleveland, Ohio. Let's say I hire someone down in Miami, Florida, and they're going to work. Well, that's a remote work situation. So then what time are they supposed to take lunch? Is there flexibility there? Like, again, if I don't communicate it, like I failed them as a leader, because then it opens up a lot of gray areas, and that's fine if they do something that's, up to them. But if I have certain expectations in my head about what hours this person's going to work or when they're going to take their lunch break, if I don't communicate that, I've let them down.
Yeah, 100%. It always goes back to the leadership. Anytime we have successes or failures, we can always pat or slap ourselves on the back. And along with the rest of the company and team members, most definitely we can't escape that. So at what point do you launch your standard operating procedures and your key performance indicators in this hiring process?
Ideally, you have them do that from the start too. They should know, again, what is their goals and objectives. Like we did SMART goals for your company. We should line those out. If you don't know what SMART stands for, it's specific, measurable, achievable, attainable, relevancy or result, and then time-centered things. And those can be broken down in a daily manner. It could be weekly, could be monthly, quarterly. Like if you've read the book Traction does rocks. So, it just really depends, but they should have those goals and objectives day one. They should know what those are. They should also have, these are the things we're going to hold you accountable to from a metric standpoint. So again, and we have a lot of people might be watching real estate wise. So if it's an acquisitions salesperson, how many calls did you make? How many letters of intent, LOIs did you produce? Those kind of things. How long was your talk time? So we can really quantify their performance. And then the SOPs, again, the standard operating procedures. What is the script, for making those calls? What's the procedure happen when, we have to pay a bill or we have to refer a customer out? Like, what do we do? Those things should be documented. And that takes a little bit of time. And if you don't have those established, you can tell the new hire, hey, this is not established yet. We're still growing. We're still, getting into all these foundational things. But we want you to help us develop these standard operating procedures. You're going to do the role. You're going to know it better than we do. And what we'd like you to do, again, I think when you hear SOPs, people make them really complicated. Like I worked for an automotive company for 5.5 years, and like the engineers would put like the charts together, the process map, and the yes, no. And I mean, sometimes these things were like, the size of a football field, right? It's
Yeah.
just crazy. Keep it really simple, right? You heard the KISS method, right? Keep it simple, stupid. So write down like, okay, if we're going to pay a bill, we do step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and so on. And then I'm a big proponent. Take your computer or your cell phone, record yourself talking through that process. Save those, for other people in case there's somebody that's coming in that's new, somebody that goes out sick, somebody gets hit by the beer truck. Like there's always that recorded process that people can look at, and then you'll build up your library that way. Like you don't need to do all this work yourself as the business owner. You can have your team be a part of the solution, but it comes down to how do you pitch the idea to them? You can tell them, hey, I really need your help developing this. I don't have the time. Like I trust you. I'm empowering you to make the decision. Let's run through it. You write them. Let's meet on Friday and let's review your SOPs that you've developed. So I don't think it has to be overly complicated. A lot of companies want to make them way more complicated than they need to be.
So something that I have, and you've already kind of touched on this a little bit, as I've experienced growing with multiple employees, I call them team members for the sake of everybody understanding, multiple employees / team members, I found myself not having or finding difficulty to really structure that time and communicate with all of my team members and do all of their performance reviews. So what does communication look like between the team member and its supervisor? Because going back to that organizational chart, I've had to really take a step back and say, whoa, I'm not the one that wears all the hats anymore. I have people in these seats. So tell me about that communication, the frequency of it, and kind of what that looks like when you've got that team member communicating to their supervisor.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that it'd be very similar to what I mentioned before. Like, so if I'm a supervisor and let's say I have 10 employees, I should be responsible for their employee reviews. I should be doing one-on-one meetings with them once a month just to get general feedback and see how I can help them. That supervisor should probably be leading a department meeting that's talking about what's going on. What do we got? What's a hindrance? What do we need help with from the team? Like they should own that, right? At the end of the day, that supervisor should own that. And then the supervisor should report up to the next level. Let's say it's an operations manager, and the operations manager should have a report on what each supervisor is doing and their team. If there's any employee issues or team member issues, any customer things we need to worry about. And then that ops manager should give you like a detailed report on what's going on, like either an overview or a longer detailed report. So you don't need to do everything like you said. Like you can't. It's impossible.
Yeah.
That's why you have a team of people to do that. And again, those supervisors are going to be the ones that are going to do the reviews. They should be the one, again, that if they're building out their team, they should have the final say in the hiring process. They should be the ones that if they're having discipline issues or there's issues that they need to coach, they should be the ones that are coaching. It shouldn't be Chris Garrison, president and CEO, at the end of the day. Like, because if you start doing that, then you're taking away the authority and cutting the legs off from the supervisor. Because then when there's a problem, that employee or team member is going to go to you instead of going to the supervisor. And I see that happen a lot. And I don't think it's ever done on purpose. I think it's always done in a place of, making sure that people know that I care and I support the team and I want to help. But what happens is then, and you've heard me say this before, Chris, but it's the mom-dad card, right?
Yeah.
And so they don't like what Chris said, so they go to the supervisor, or they don't like what the supervisor said. So, hey, I know Chris helped me with this one thing. Let me go ask Chris the same question. Then you give two different answers. Now the supervisor is got to try to handle it, nip it in the butt before it goes to you. But if someone comes to you, you got to say, you know what? Hey, I'm not the best person to talk to. I'm not trying to, blow you off, but I need you to work with your supervisor. Now, if it's a harassment claim or a discriminatory claim, that's a different story, right? But if it's a workplace performance issue, somebody only produced 10 widgets and you think they should have produced 15, that should go to the supervisor. That should be going to you. But again, the other thing that I recommend that I like doing is like a quarterly team meeting where everybody comes. Everybody comes to those meetings. We give state on how we produced and how we did it the first quarter. I mean, today's March 30th, so we're almost there. So doing a meeting like the first or the second week after the quarter's over and just talking about this is how we did financially. This is what's coming up in the next quarter. This is, what we did really well. Sharing the wins and really talking about those, because you've heard the saying about the elephant, you don't bite it all in one bite, it's multiple bites, or it takes time to do that. So again, celebrating the wins and making sure that the team feels, again, appreciated, and that they feel like they know that their contributions mean something. So I like doing those quarterly meetings so people get to hear from me as the leader. So we would do, like, we call them town hall meetings. So we would do those once a quarter at the PE firm. At the international automotive company I worked at, we did those once a month. And they're a pain, man. I got to tell you, like, it's because we had 3 shifts working, first, second, third. We also had 12-hour shifts, a day and a night 12-hour shift thing. So we would do like 8 or 9 meetings a month sometimes. And it was between me, the president and CEO, and then another person on my HR team. Like, we were tapped out, man. It was just a long week, when we did those employee meetings. But the employees deserve that. They want to hear what's going on. They want to feel like they can ask questions. It was nice because we had people that were always able to talk to us once a month and share kind of what was going on. As I moved up in the organization, I stopped doing them every month. I had my HR manager take those over because I would be in Brazil or I'd be in Mexico, and the president and CEO, him and I would travel a lot together. So then the ops manager took his spot, and we broke it up so it wasn't very monotonous. We had different things that we shared. So, but that would be another way to, like, make sure that we're communicating, but you don't need to be doing all that yourself. You can do that.
So daily huddles, first thing in the morning, real short daily huddles.
Yep. 10 minutes or less.
Weekly leadership check-ins, monthly one-on-ones
with your team members,
with your team members that you're responsible for.
Correct.
And then quarterly company-wide check-ins.
Yep. That's my opinion. Again, the reason why, and again, it's a structured process, right, with that communication. But the big thing that's going to do for most companies, Chris, it's going to allow them to know what's going on. It's going to remove the rumor mongers and everybody saying, well, is this going on or is this happening?
Right.
All that stuff goes away. So the more we're proactive with our communication, the better off we are.